On June 6, 1944, Allied forces launched Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious invasion in military history, landing more than 156,000 troops on the beaches of Normandy, France. While the courage and sacrifice of those soldiers has been rightfully commemorated for decades, historians have increasingly recognized that the success of D-Day depended not only on military might, but also on an elaborate campaign of strategic deception that may have saved tens of thousands of Allied lives. At the heart of this deception lay Operation Fortitude, a multifaceted stratagem designed to convince Adolf Hitler and the German High Command that the Allied invasion would strike at Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel, rather than the actual target of Normandy. Central to this deception was the creation of a phantom military formation, the 1st United States Army Group, FUSAG, supposedly commanded by Lieutenant General George S. Patton, the American commander most feared and respected by German military leadership. This historical analysis examines the origins, implementation, and impact of Operation Fortitude, with particular emphasis on the role of the fictitious FUSAG and General Patton's participation in the deception. Drawing on declassified military documents, intelligence records, and scholarly research, this study demonstrates how creative thinking, technological innovation, and psychological warfare combined to create one of the most consequential strategic deceptions in modern military history. 2. Strategic context. The necessity of deception. 2.1 The challenge of Fortress Europe. By late 1943, Allied military planners faced an unprecedented challenge. Nazi Germany had spent years fortifying the Atlantic coastline from Norway to the Spanish border, creating what propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels called the Atlantic Wall. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel intensified these defenses throughout 1944, installing millions of mines, concrete bunkers, artillery emplacements, and beach obstacles designed to repel any amphibious assault. The German military leadership understood that an Allied invasion of Western Europe was inevitable. The question was not whether such an invasion would occur, but where and when. From a purely strategic perspective, Pas-de-Calais presented the most logical invasion point for several compelling reasons. Geographic proximity. Pas-de-Calais represented the shortest distance across the English Channel, approximately 21 miles, compared to the 100-mile crossing to Normandy. Direct route to Germany. An invasion at Pas-de-Calais offered the most direct path to the Rhine River and into the industrial heart of Germany. Strategic importance. The region housed launch sites for V-1 and V-2 rockets that were terrorizing London and other British cities. Port facilities. The capture of Calais would provide the Allies with a major port to supply their armies. Recognizing these strategic realities, Rommel concentrated the powerful German 15th Army, comprising 19 divisions and approximately 250,000 men, in the Pas-de-Calais region. If this force could be kept in place, away from Normandy, the invasion would face significantly reduced opposition. 2.2 The genesis of Operation Bodigard. In December 1943, the London Controlling Section, LCS, a secret British military organization responsible for strategic deception, began planning what would become Operation Bodigard, the overall deception strategy supporting the Normandy invasion. The name derived from Winston Churchill's statement that, in wartime, truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies. Operation Bodigard encompassed numerous sub-operations designed to mislead German intelligence about Allied intentions across multiple theaters. The two primary components affecting the invasion of France were Operation Fortitude North, a deception suggesting Allied plans to invade Norway, using a fictitious British Fourth Army supposedly based in Scotland. Operation Fortitude South, the more elaborate southern operation, which would create the Phantom 1st United States Army Group threatening Pas-de-Calais. Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, SHEF, under General Dwight D. Eisenhower held ultimate responsibility for executing these deception plans. Within SHEF, a special section called Ops B handled the detailed planning and coordination of Fortitude operations. Meanwhile, the 21st Army Group under General Bernard Montgomery established our force to manage tactical deception elements. 3. Operation Fortitude South, Architecture of Illusion. 3.1 Creating the 1st United States Army Group, FUSAG. The centerpiece of Operation Fortitude South was FUSAG, an entirely fictitious army group that existed only in German intelligence assessments and Allied deception materials. According to the fabricated order of battle, FUSAG comprised 11 divisions totaling approximately 150,000 men organized into two corps, the 3rd United States Army and the 1st Canadian Army. The deception planners understood that creating a convincing phantom army required attention to countless details. FUSAG needed a complete organizational structure with identified divisions, regiments, and battalions, realistic communication networks that German signals intelligence could monitor, a credible commander whose involvement would validate the importance of the formation, physical evidence that German aerial reconnaissance could photograph, a plausible narrative explaining FUSAG's mission and relationship to other Allied forces. To make FUSAG appear credible, planners initially assigned command to Lieutenant General Omar Bradley, who legitimately commanded the U.S. First Army designated for the actual Normandy invasion. However, in early 1944, the deception received a crucial enhancement. Bradley was publicly replaced as FUSAG commander by Lieutenant General George S. Patton. 3.2 The Patton Factor, Psychology and Reputation. The selection of George Patton to command the Phantom FUSAG represented a masterstroke of psychological warfare. Several factors made Patton the ideal choice for this critical deception role. German respect and fear. German military intelligence rated Patton as the most capable and aggressive American field commander. His successful campaigns in North Africa and Sicily had earned him a fearsome reputation. German leaders believed that the Allies would naturally assign their best general to command the primary invasion force. Recent disgrace. In August 1943, Patton had struck 2 soldiers suffering from combat fatigue during the Sicily campaign. When the incidents became public, General Eisenhower removed Patton from combat command. This very public fall from grace made Patton's assignment to FUSAG plausible. He was available for a secondary role while serving a form of professional penance. Publicity value. Patton's distinctive appearance, outspoken personality, and penchant for wearing ivory-handled revolvers made him immediately recognizable. His public appearances in southeastern England could be photographed and reported by German agents. Operational security. Using Patton in the deception meant he was genuinely available in England, not secretly planning operations elsewhere. This eliminated concerns about accidentally revealing his true location. From January through May 1944, Patton played his role with calculated indiscretion. He made public appearances at FUSAG-related sites in Kent, Sussex, and Essex. He attended social events where he made seemingly careless remarks about future operations targeting Pas-de-Calais. He inspected phantom units that existed only as radio call signs and inflatable equipment. 3.3 Visual Deception, the Dummy Arsenal. To create physical evidence of FUSAG's existence, Allied engineers developed an extraordinary array of dummy military equipment. This visual deception effort centered in southeastern England, where German reconnaissance aircraft could photograph the supposed Fusag concentration areas. Inflatable tanks and vehicles. British and American engineers produced hundreds of inflatable rubber tanks, trucks, and artillery pieces. These decoys, weighing approximately 93 pounds each, could be inflated by 2 men in 15 minutes. From the air or at a distance, they appeared convincingly real. The decoys featured painted details including track marks, unit insignias, and simulated wear patterns. Dummy landing craft. In harbors along the southeastern coast, particularly around Dover, engineers constructed approximately 255 fake landing craft. These were assembled using steel tubes, canvas, and empty oil drums to create buoyant frames covered with painted fabric. From aerial reconnaissance photographs, they appeared to be legitimate assault vessels preparing for invasion. Fake encampments. Throughout Kent and Sussex, construction crews built simulated military camps complete with tents, latrines, cookhouses, and vehicle parks. Careful attention was paid to creating realistic patterns of activity, supply dumps, maintenance areas, and command centers that would be visible to German aerial reconnaissance. Mock airfields. Engineers carved fake airfield patterns into fields, complete with dummy aircraft made from wood and canvas. At night, crews moved automobile headlights around these fake airfields to simulate aircraft movements that German observers might detect. The scale of this physical deception was immense. Historical records indicate that the Allies deployed enough dummy equipment to simulate 2 full armor divisions. Real units destined for Normandy were initially positioned in southeastern England as part of Fusag, then quietly moved to actual invasion staging areas in southwestern England once they had served their deceptive purpose. 3.4 Sonic deception, the sounds of war. Beyond visual deception, Operation Fortitude employed sophisticated audio illusions. Sonic deception units, which would later become famous as the Ghost Army in continental operations, recorded the sounds of tanks, trucks, and troops in motion. These recordings were broadcast from powerful speakers in Fusag areas during hours when German listening posts might monitor the activity. Sound engineers recorded tank treads and engine noises, truck convoys, bridge construction equipment, artillery movements, transformation conducting drill. These audio illusions help create the impression of a massive military force preparing for operations, reinforcing the evidence provided by visual deception and radio traffic. 3.5 Radio deception, electronic warfare. Perhaps the most sophisticated element of Operation Fortitude involved radio deception. German signals intelligence, Funkabwehr, monitored Allied radio communications constantly, analyzing traffic patterns, unit identifications, and communication procedures to develop their intelligence picture of Allied dispositions. Allied deception specialists created an entire electronic order of battle for Fusag. Radio operators transmitted thousands of messages using proper military communication protocols, realistic message volumes consistent with a large army group headquarters, call signs and frequencies for fictional Fusag divisions and regiments, encrypted messages that Germans would intercept and decrypt, traffic patterns indicating headquarters locations in southeastern England. The radio deception had to be meticulously coordinated. Real units initially assigned to Fusag maintained their radio signatures even after moving to actual invasion staging areas. New fictional units were created to replace them, maintaining the electronic appearance of a massive force in southeastern England. Radio operators even simulated the communication patterns of Patton's command style, aggressive, demanding immediate responses, and favoring direct communication between headquarters and subordinate units. These electronic signatures helped German intelligence analysts confirm Patton's presence and active command of Fusag. 4. The double-cross system, human deception. While physical and electronic deception created the stage, human intelligence sources provided the narrative that convinced German leadership. The British double-cross system, managed by the 20 Committee XX Committee of MI5, had systematically captured or turned every German agent operating in Britain. These double agents became invaluable channels for feeding deceptive information to German intelligence. 4.1 Agent Garbo, the master deceiver. Among the double agents employed in Operation Fortitude, none proved more valuable than one Pugil Garcia, codenamed Garbo by the British, after actress Greta Garbo for his acting abilities, and Arabelle by the Germans. Origins and recruitment. Garcia was a Spanish citizen who developed a passionate hatred of fascism during the Spanish Civil War. In 1941, he approached British intelligence offering his services as a spy. When the British initially rejected him, Garcia took an extraordinary step. He approached German intelligence, convinced them he had access to information in Britain, and began sending fabricated intelligence reports from Lisbon while pretending to be in London, despite never having visited Britain and speaking no English. Garcia's self-taught spy work was so convincing that German intelligence began paying him for his reports. When British intelligence finally recognized his potential in 1942, they brought him to Britain and assigned him handler Tomas Harris, a Spanish-speaking MI5 officer. Together, Garcia and Harris would create one of the most successful deception operations in espionage history. The Garbo Network. Garcia's genius lay in creating an elaborate network of entirely fictional subagents, eventually numbering 27 individuals. These non-existent spies supposedly operated throughout Britain, reporting on military movements, industrial production, and social conditions. Each fictional agent had a detailed backstory, personality, and area of specialization. A Venezuelan living in Glasgow who reported on shipping in the Clyde. A Welsh nationalist fascist sympathizer who recruited sub-agents in Wales. An American sergeant stationed in England. A wealthy widow in the WAF, Women's Auxiliary Air Force. Portuguese businessmen in various British cities. British servicemen disaffected with the war effort. Garcia and Harris maintained this fictional network through 315 letters averaging 2,000 words each, sent to a Lisbon post office box monitored by German intelligence. The letters were written in a verbose, fanatically pro-Nazi style that Garcia had developed during his independent operations. From August 1943 onward, messages were sent by radio, requiring even more complex coordination. The Germans paid Garcia approximately $340,000 over the course of the war, equivalent to over $6 million in 2024, to support his fictional network. They never suspected deception. For point 2 Garbo's D-Day deception, Garcia's role in Operation Fortitude South proved decisive. Throughout late 1943 and early 1944, his fictional agents reported Fusag units arriving in southeastern England. Training exercises consistent with amphibious assault preparations. Patton's assumption of Fusag command. Supply stockpiling in Dover and other southeastern ports. Briefings and reconnaissance activities pointing toward Pas-de-Calais. The information Garcia provided was carefully calibrated to be credible, based on details that could be corroborated through other sources. Mostly accurate, mixed with genuine but militarily useless information. Timely but too late. Critical intelligence that arrived after events, proving accuracy while being operationally useless. In one famous example, Garcia sent a letter before Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa, in November 1942, reporting that a convoy had departed painted in Mediterranean camouflage. The letter was timed to arrive after the landings, prompting German handlers to write, We are sorry they arrived too late, but your last reports were magnificent. Most critically, on June 9th, 1944, 3 days after D-Day, Garcia sent an urgent message to his German handlers warning that the Normandy landings were merely a diversion and that Patton's Fusag would launch the main invasion at Pas-de-Calais within days. This message, which has been called the single most important piece of intelligence sent during the war, caused Hitler to personally order German panzer divisions that were en route to Normandy to turn around and redeploy to Pas-de-Calais. 4.3 Other double agents. While Garbo proved most influential, other double agents contributed to Operation Fortitude. Brutus, Roman Czerniawski, a Polish Air Force officer turned by German intelligence, then returned by the British. Brutus confirmed reports of Fusag activities and Patton's command role. Treasure, Lily Sergeyev, a French-Russian double agent who reported on military movements in southern England, supporting the Fortitude South narrative. Tate, Wolf Schmidt, a German agent captured early in the war who provided consistent reports about military activities in southeastern England. These agents' reports were coordinated to provide corroborating evidence without appearing too perfectly aligned, which might have aroused German suspicions. 5. The role of ultra-intelligence. Closing the loop. A crucial but often underappreciated element of Operation Fortitude's success was the ultra-intelligence program, the Allied effort to decrypt German military communications. The code-breaking work at Bletchley Park, where British cryptanalysts had broken the German Enigma cipher machine, provided Allied planners with an unprecedented advantage. They could read German assessments of their own deception efforts in near real time. 5.1 Bletchley Park and Enigma. The Enigma machine used by German military forces employed a complex system of rotors and electrical pathways to create an encryption that German commanders believed to be unbreakable. Each day, German units received new settings that determined how the machine would encrypt messages. With proper daily settings, Enigma created 159 million possible combinations. Breaking Enigma required not just mathematical brilliance, but also industrial-scale cryptanalysis. At Bletchley Park, a Victoria mansion in Buckinghamshire converted into Britain's cryptographic headquarters, thousands of analysts worked around the clock on 3 shifts. By D-Day, Bletchley Park's 7,000-strong workforce was decrypting nearly 5,000 Enigma messages daily. The breakthrough came partly from earlier Polish cryptographic work and partly from captured Enigma machines and codebooks. British mathematician Alan Turing designed electromechanical bomb machines that could test possible daily settings at high speed, dramatically reducing the time needed to break each day's codes. Later, the even more advanced Colossus computer, the world's first programmable digital electronic computer, was developed to decrypt the German High Command's Lorenz cipher, providing insight into strategic decision-making. 5.2 The Closed-Loop Deception System. Ultra-intelligence transformed Operation Fortitude from a one-way deception into a closed-loop system. When double agents transmitted information to German intelligence, British cryptanalysts at Bletchley Park could read German intelligence assessments responding to that information. This created several critical advantages. Confirmation of success. Decrypted German messages revealed whether deception efforts were believed. When German intelligence reports described Fusag as a genuine threat and discussed Patton's command, planners knew their deception was working. Course correction. If German intelligence expressed skepticism about particular claims, deception planners could adjust their strategy, providing additional corroborating evidence or shifting emphasis to more credible elements. Threat assessment. Ultra decrypts revealed German force dispositions, allowing Allied planners to monitor whether German units were being positioned to counter the fictitious Fusag threat rather than the real invasion force. Security validation. Perhaps most critically, the absence of any German communication suggesting they had discovered the deception confirmed operational security remained intact. By May 1944, ultra-decrypts revealed that German high command accepted Fusag as real, expected the primary invasion at Pas-de-Calais. This intelligence gave Allied commanders confidence to proceed with Operation Overlord as planned. 5.3 D-Day Intelligence. On June 6, 1944, as Allied forces landed on Normandy beaches, Bletchley Park monitored German reactions in real time. Enigma decrypts revealed initial German confusion about the scale and location of landings. Orders to coastal defense units. Movement of German naval forces. Crucially, continued German belief that Normandy might be a diversion. Ultra-intelligence revealed that German commanders were debating whether to commit their strategic reserve, particularly the powerful 15th Army in Pas-de-Calais, to counter the Normandy landings. The intelligence showed that many German officers, influenced by months of Fortitude deception, believed Fusag's assault on Pas-de-Calais remained imminent. 6. The complementary deceptions. 6.1 Operation Fortitude North. While Operation Fortitude South focused German attention on Pas-de-Calais, the northern variant aimed to threaten Norway. Using a fictional British Fourth Army, supposedly based in Scotland, this deception sought to keep German divisions in Scandinavia rather than allowing their redeployment to France. Fortitude North relied primarily on radio deception, as German reconnaissance aircraft were unlikely to penetrate as far north as Scotland without being intercepted. False radio traffic simulated a substantial force preparing for amphibious operations against Norway. Double agents, particularly those codenamed Mutt and Jeff, two Norwegian agents captured after landing in Scotland in 1941, reported troop concentrations and preparations in Scottish ports. The deception proved remarkably successful. Hitler, who had personally fixated on the strategic importance of Norway, particularly its heavy water production facilities and access to Swedish iron ore, retained 13 divisions, approximately 250,000 troops, in Norway throughout the critical months of 1944. These forces could have significantly strengthened German defenses in France had they been available for redeployment. 6.2 The Patton Diversions. Before assuming his role with Fusag, Patton's movements were carefully orchestrated to support broader deception efforts. Between late 1943 and early 1944, he made highly publicized visits to Corsica, supporting Operation Vendetta, a deception suggesting invasion of southern France. Malta, supporting suggestions of operations in the Balkans. Egypt, implying possible operations in Greece or the Eastern Mediterranean. These movements kept German intelligence guessing about Allied intentions while preventing them from concentrating forces in northwestern France. Throughout this period, German analysts tracked Patton's movements closely, attempting to discern Allied invasion plans from the deployment of their most capable field commander. 6.3 Special Operations and Tactical Deceptions. Operation Fortitude was complemented by numerous tactical deceptions executed closer to D-Day. Operation Titanic. On the night of June 5th to 6th, the RAF dropped approximately 500 dummy paratroopers at various locations away from actual airborne landing zones. Special Air Service, SAS, teams accompanied the dummies, playing recordings of battle sounds through loudspeakers to simulate airborne assaults. While German defenders quickly recognized some dummies, the operation created confusion and dispersed German quick reaction forces. Operation Glimmer. Aircraft dropped aluminum strips called chaff or window over the English Channel to create radar signatures, suggesting a large naval convoy heading toward Pas-de-Calais. German radar operators tracked what appeared to be a massive fleet that did not actually exist. Operation Taxable. A similar operation used chaff to simulate a convoy approaching the Cap d'Enfer area, northeast of the actual invasion beaches. 7. Implementation and impact, D-Day and beyond. 7.1 The critical days. June 6th to 9th, 1944. As dawn broke on June 6th, 1944, Allied forces commenced their assault on 5 Normandy beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. The initial landings achieved varying degrees of success. At Omaha Beach, American forces faced devastating casualties from well-positioned German defenders. At other beaches, resistance proved lighter than anticipated. The immediate German response revealed the impact of Operation Fortitude. While local German commanders recognized the invasion's seriousness, the German High Command remained uncertain whether Normandy represented the main effort or a diversionary attack preceding the real invasion at Pas-de-Calais. This uncertainty proved decisive. The German 15th Army, positioned to defend Pas-de-Calais, comprised 19 divisions, including several powerful panzer formations. Had these units moved immediately to Normandy, they could have overwhelmed Allied forces while they were most vulnerable, during the crucial hours and days when the beachhead was being established. Agent Garbo's message of June 9th proved critical. His warning that Fusag remained poised to strike Pas-de-Calais convinced Hitler to keep the 15th Army in position. German panzer divisions that had begun moving toward Normandy received orders to turn back toward Pas-de-Calais. This decision gave Allied forces precious time to consolidate their beachhead, land additional troops and supplies, and begin breaking out from the coastal areas. 7.2 The 7-week gift. Allied planners had hoped Operation Fortitude might deceive Germans for perhaps 2 weeks after D-Day, long enough for the invasion force to establish a secure foothold. Instead, the deception remained effective for 7 weeks. Throughout June and into July 1944, German High Command continued to believe Fusag threatened Pas-de-Calais. Ultra-decrypts revealed ongoing German intelligence assessments warning of the Phantom Army Group's imminent assault. The 15th Army remained largely in position, conducting only limited, piecemeal reinforcement of Normandy, rather than a massive redeployment that could have threatened the entire invasion. This 7-week period allowed establishment of secure beachheads, landing of over 850,000 troops, construction of artificial mulberry harbors to handle supply operations, breakout from coastal areas, and commencement of operations to liberate France. 7.3 Patton's real command. The Third Army. On August 1st, 1944, Patton finally assumed command of a real formation, the U.S. Third Army. His new command broke out from the Normandy beachhead in a lightning campaign that demonstrated precisely the aggressive, mobile warfare that had made him so feared by German commanders. The Third Army's rapid advance across France validated German assumptions about Patton's capabilities while also revealing the irony of Operation Fortitude. By keeping Patton in England for months as commander of a Phantom Army, the Allies had delayed deploying their most aggressive commander. Yet this delay proved worthwhile. The deception saved more lives than Patton's earlier deployment could have. 7.4 Quantifying the impact. Estimating Operation Fortitude's precise impact presents methodological challenges, but military historians have attempted various assessments. Lives saved. Conservative estimates suggest Fortitude saved 15,000 to 30,000 Allied lives during the critical invasion period. If the German 15th Army had immediately reinforced Normandy, casualties could have been catastrophic. Strategic advantage. General Dwight Eisenhower stated after the war that the German 15th Army, which, if committed to battle in June or July, might possibly have defeated us by sheer weight of numbers, remained inoperative during the critical period of the campaign. Timing advantage. Without Fortitude, the Normandy invasion might have failed entirely, potentially delaying the liberation of Western Europe by months or years and allowing the Soviet Union to occupy more of Europe. Force multiplication. The relatively small investment in deception resources, dummy equipment, radio operators, double agents, effectively neutralized an entire German army, achieving what would have required multiple actual divisions to accomplish through combat. 8. The Ghost Army, continuing the deception in Europe. While Operation Fortitude focused on pre-invasion deception, the principles and techniques developed were applied throughout the European campaign by a specialized unit that would become legendary. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, known as the Ghost Army. 8.1 Formation and Composition. Activated on January 20th, 1944 at Camp Forest, Tennessee, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops comprised approximately 1,100 men organized into specialized units. 603rd Camouflage Engineers, the visual deception specialists, equipped with inflatable tanks, trucks, artillery pieces, and aircraft. This unit included numerous artists, designers, and creative professionals recruited specifically for their ability to create convincing illusions. 3,132nd Signal Service Company handled sonic deception, using powerful speakers to broadcast recordings of tank movements, bridge construction, and troop formations. These audio illusions could be heard for miles, creating the impression of major force movements. Signal Company Special conducted radio deception, simulating communication patterns of divisions and corps-level headquarters to mislead German signals intelligence. 406th Engineer Combat Company provided security and support, protecting the deception units and assisting with construction and demolition tasks. The Ghost Army's composition was remarkable. With an average IQ of 119, among the highest in the Army, the unit included future fashion designer Bill Blass, painter Ellsworth Kelly, photographer Art Kane, and numerous other artists and creative professionals. This concentration of talent proved essential for crafting convincing battlefield deceptions. 8.2 Operations in Europe. From June 1944 through the end of the war in May 1945, the Ghost Army conducted more than 20 major deception operations across France, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Germany. These operations typically involved impersonation. The Ghost Army would move into an area and assume the identity of a much larger unit, often an entire division of 15,000 to 20,000 men, while the real unit moved elsewhere. Visual illusion. Inflatable equipment created the appearance of tank battalions and artillery batteries that did not exist. Audio reinforcement. Sound recordings broadcast at night enhanced the illusion of large-scale military activity. Radio simulation. Operators maintained communication patterns consistent with the unit being impersonated. Personal deception. Ghost Army soldiers visited local cafes and shops in uniform patches of a unit they were impersonating, casually discussing their fictitious unit's activities where German spies might overhear. 8.3 Notable Operations. Operation Brest. August-September 1944, the Ghost Army's first major operation in Europe, supporting the siege of the fortified French port city of Brest. The deception made the attacking American force appear larger than actual strength, contributing to the German commander's decision to surrender. Operation Viersen. March 1945, perhaps the Ghost Army's most successful operation. This deception convinced German forces that the U.S. Ninth Army would cross the Rhine River far north of the actual crossing point. The operation contributed to Allied forces establishing a bridgehead with minimal casualties. Hurtgen Forest Operations. Multiple Ghost Army operations in this contested region helped protect American units by simulating force concentrations in secondary areas, drawing German attention and fire away from actual positions. 8.4 Legacy and Recognition. The Ghost Army's operations remained classified until 1996, 50 years after the war ended. Soldiers who had participated were sworn to secrecy and could not discuss their service even with family members. When the Ghost Army story finally became public, it revealed a fascinating chapter of military history. The unit's success demonstrated that creative thinking and psychological operations could achieve strategic effects impossible through conventional military means. In 2022, Ghost Army veterans were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in recognition of their service, which historians estimate saved thousands of lives. 9. The Intelligence War. German failures and Allied advantages. Understanding Operation Fortitude's success requires examining not only what the Allies did right, but also systemic German intelligence failures that made the deception possible. 9.1 German intelligence structures. The Nazi intelligence apparatus suffered from fragmentation and rivalry. Multiple organizations competed for authority and resources. Abwehr, the military intelligence service of the Wehrmacht, German armed forces, responsible for espionage and counterintelligence. Led by Admiral Wilhelm Canaris until 1944, the Abwehr's effectiveness was compromised by internal divisions and, unknown to most German leaders, by Canaris's own anti-Hitler sentiments. Sicherheitsdienst, SD, the intelligence service of the SS, competing with the Abwehr for primacy. The SD under Heinrich Himmler eventually absorbed the Abwehr in 1944. Funkabwehr, signals intelligence, service monitoring Allied communications. Luftwaffe reconnaissance, aerial reconnaissance units that provided photographic intelligence of Britain. This organizational rivalry meant that intelligence was often not shared effectively, and different services sometimes reached contradictory conclusions without systematic resolution. 9.2 The failure of German intelligence in Britain. A fundamental German intelligence failure enabled Operation Fortitude. By 1944, British counterintelligence had captured or turned every German agent in Britain. The double-cross system meant that every piece of human intelligence reaching German handlers from Britain was actually controlled by British intelligence. German intelligence officers never discovered this catastrophic penetration. Several factors contributed to this failure. Confirmation bias. German analysts received information from multiple sources, double agents, that corroborated each other, because British handlers coordinated the information being sent. Ultra-security. The British kept the secret of their Enigma decryption so closely guarded that Germans never suspected their communications were being read, which would have prompted investigation of how the Allies anticipated German actions. Successful tactical deceptions. Earlier deceptions, such as Operation Mincemeat, the man who never was operation before the Sicily invasion, had succeeded without German discovery, building confidence in their intelligence sources. Payment and awards. The Germans not only paid double agents like Garbo substantial sums, but also awarded them medals. Garbo received the Iron Cross, reinforcing belief in their authenticity. 9.3 The impact of Ultra. The ability to read German communications fundamentally altered the intelligence balance. While German intelligence operated in the dark, often receiving only misinformation, Allied commanders knew. German force dispositions. German strategic intentions. German intelligence assessments. German response to deception operations. German supply situations and capabilities. This intelligence asymmetry meant that Allied deception operations could be crafted with knowledge of what Germans already believed and what additional evidence would be most convincing. 9.4 Hitler's personal role. Adolf Hitler's personal involvement in military decision-making contributed to Fortitude's success. Hitler had developed strong preconceptions about where the Allies would invade, fixating on Pas-de-Calais, for the reasons previously discussed. Operation Fortitude reinforced these preconceptions rather than challenging them. Hitler also refused to allow significant flexibility in response to developments. When some field commanders wanted to reinforce Normandy after D-Day, Hitler's personal orders kept forces in place at Pas-de-Calais. His micromanagement of military operations, driven partly by intelligence reports that were actually Allied deception, contributed to German strategic paralysis during the critical weeks after D-Day. 10. Ethical and historical considerations. 10.1 The morality of deception in warfare. Operation Fortitude raises philosophical questions about the ethics of military deception. While all warfare involves death and destruction, deception operations specifically aim to manipulate enemy decision-making through lies and misdirection. From a utilitarian perspective, Operation Fortitude demonstrates deception's potential to reduce casualties on both sides. By keeping German forces away from Normandy during the critical establishment phase, the operation likely saved thousands of Allied lives. Paradoxically, it may have also saved German lives by shortening the war and preventing prolonged battles that would have resulted from failed invasion. Military ethicists have generally concluded that strategic deception directed against military forces represents a legitimate form of warfare, distinct from deception targeting civilians or violating protected categories, such as misusing the Red Cross symbol or flags of truce. The Hague Conventions and subsequent laws of war do not prohibit military deception, but rather regulate specific prohibited practices. 10.2 The human cost of double-agent operations. The use of double agents presents more complex ethical questions. Juan Pujol Garcia, Garbo, and other double agents risked not only their own lives, but potentially their families if discovered. After the war, Garcia had to fake his death and live under assumed identity for decades because he feared retribution from former German intelligence officers. Other agents faced even grimmer fates. Those who refused to cooperate with British intelligence after capture faced execution as spies. The moral calculus involved balancing individual rights against broader strategic necessity, a calculation that wartime conditions made particularly stark. 10.3 Post-war secrecy and historical understanding. The extreme secrecy surrounding Operation Fortitude and related deception operations prevented public understanding of these critical events for decades. The double-cross system remained classified until 1972. The Ghost Army's operations remained secret until 1996. Ultra-intelligence remained classified until 1974. This secrecy served legitimate security purposes, protecting intelligence sources and methods that remained relevant during the Cold War. However, it also meant that public understanding of World War II developed without knowledge of operations that had been crucial to Allied victory. Soldiers who had participated in these operations could not discuss their service, even with family, creating a particular burden for veterans whose contributions went unrecognized. The gradual declassification has necessitated historical reassessment. Understanding Operation Fortitude transforms our comprehension of D-Day from a purely military achievement to a demonstration of integrated operations combining conventional military force with creative deception, psychological warfare, and technological advantage. 10.4 Lessons for historical analysis. Operation Fortitude demonstrates the importance of examining not only what happened, but also what did not happen because of actions taken. Counterfactual analysis, considering how events might have developed differently, reveals that some of the most consequential military operations are those that prevented battles rather than winning them. The operation also illustrates the danger of over-relying on intelligence without critical analysis. German intelligence received extensive information about Fusag, but organizational biases, confirmation bias, and Hitler's preconceptions prevented proper assessment of that information's reliability. 11. Technical innovation and methodology. 11.1 Development of deception equipment. The physical equipment used in Operation Fortitude represented significant engineering innovation. Creating convincing inflatable tanks required solving multiple technical challenges. Material selection. Engineers needed materials that were lightweight, durable, could be inflated quickly, and would hold shape under various weather conditions. They developed specialized rubber compounds that balanced these requirements. Visual fidelity. From aerial reconnaissance altitudes, typically 15,000 to 30,000 feet, dummy equipment had to appear real. This required careful attention to proportions and dimensions matching actual equipment. Paint schemes that matched legitimate military vehicles. Surface textures that responded to light similarly to real equipment. Simulated track marks and ground disturbance around vehicles. Appropriate weathering and wear patterns. Operational practicality. Equipment had to be transportable by small teams and deployable rapidly. The final designs allowed 2 soldiers to inflate a dummy tank in approximately 15 minutes using bicycle pumps or small compressors. British engineers from the Royal Engineers and specialized industrial designers worked at secret facilities to develop and test these deception devices. The production involved small specialized firms rather than major military contractors, maintaining security while producing thousands of dummy items. 11.2 Radio deception methodology. The radio deception component involves sophisticated understanding of communications procedures and patterns. Specialists had to learn communication protocols. Each military unit had characteristic communication patterns, frequency of transmissions, message lengths, encryption procedures, and network structures. Radio operators studied legitimate units to master these patterns. Maintain consistency. Once a fictional unit's communication signature was established, it had to remain consistent. Changes in operators, procedures, or patterns might alert German signals intelligence to deception. Create realistic content. Messages had to contain appropriate military content, logistics requests, situation reports, personnel matters, that would appear authentic if intercepted and decrypted. Coordinate with operations. Radio deception had to align with other deception elements. If dummy tanks were moved from one location to another, radio traffic had to reflect that movement with appropriate timing and content. The British had established specialized units for signals deception, with operators trained specifically in maintaining fictional radio networks. These specialists were often drawn from civilian communications professions and given intensive military training. 11.3 The role of aerial photography analysis. Both sides relied heavily on aerial reconnaissance for intelligence. German reconnaissance aircraft regularly photographed southeastern England, and their photographic interpreters analyzed these images for evidence of Allied preparations. Allied planners had to consider what German analysts would look for. Ground disturbance patterns. Tank and vehicle movements create distinctive ground disturbance patterns visible in aerial photographs. Engineers created fake track marks and disturbed earth around dummy equipment. Dispersion patterns. Military units position equipment according to doctrine. Artillery batteries have specific layouts. Tank formations follow particular patterns. Dummy equipment had to be positioned according to these doctrinal standards. Temporal changes. By comparing photographs taken on different dates, analysts could track movements and assess activity levels. Allied planners had to ensure that dummy installations showed appropriate changes over time. Equipment moved, camps expanded, new installations appeared. Shadow analysis. Analysts examined shadows cast by equipment to assess size, shape, and three-dimensionality. While inflatable tanks could not perfectly replicate three-dimensional shadows, from typical reconnaissance altitudes, they appeared sufficiently convincing. Allied understanding of German photo interpretation capabilities came partly from analyzing German photographs captured in North Africa, and partly from interrogating captured German photo interpreters. 11.4 Sonic Deception Technology. The sound recordings used in tactical deception operations represented innovative audio engineering for the 1940s. Engineers recorded various military sounds. Heavy equipment, tank tracks, truck convoys, bulldozers, cranes, and construction equipment. Mechanical sounds, bridge construction, pile driving, equipment maintenance. Human activity, troop formations, shouted commands, equipment being loaded. These recordings were made using professional audio equipment and then broadcast using powerful public address systems mounted on trucks or concealed in forward positions. The technology had to overcome several challenges. Distance requirements. Sounds had to be audible at distances where enemy listening posts operated, often several miles. This required high-powered amplifiers and directional speaker arrays. Environmental realism. Sounds recorded in one location might not sound realistic when broadcast in different terrain. Engineers had to account for how sound propagates in different environments: forests versus open fields, hills versus flat terrain. Timing coordination. Sound deception often accompanied visual deception. Operators had to coordinate audio playback with other activities to create a coherent impression. The sonic deception technology developed for Operation Fortitude and later Ghost Army operations remained classified and was employed in subsequent conflicts, including Korea and Vietnam. 12. Comparative analysis. Deception in military history. 12.1 Historical precedents. Military deception has ancient roots. Notable historical examples include the Trojan horse, the legendary Greek stratagem of concealing soldiers inside a wooden horse presented as a gift, gaining entry to Troy through deception rather than force. Zhuge Liang's empty fort strategy. The Chinese strategist reportedly deceived enemy forces by opening his city's gates and making it appear undefended when he had no troops, causing the enemy to suspect a trap and withdraw. Napoleon's use of the corps system. Napoleon organized his army into semi-independent corps that could march separately and concentrate rapidly, creating uncertainty about his true strength and intentions. The haversack ruse. During the American Civil War, Confederate General Stonewall Jackson used a lost haversack containing false operational orders to mislead Union commanders about his intentions. However, Operation Fortitude represented a qualitative leap in scale, sophistication, and integration of multiple deception disciplines. Previous deceptions typically involved tactical-level operations affecting single battles. Fortitude operated at the strategic level, shaping German force dispositions across an entire theater for months. 12.2 Deception in World War II context. Operation Fortitude was part of a broader Allied embrace of deception operations throughout World War II. Operation Mincemeat. 1943 British intelligence planted fake documents on a corpse that washed up in Spain, deceiving Germans about Allied invasion plans in the Mediterranean. This operation, immortalized in the book and film The Man Who Never Was, demonstrated the potential of elaborate strategic deception. Operation Bodigard's other components. Besides Fortitude North and South, the overall Bodigard plan included deceptions suggesting Allied operations in the Balkans, Operations Zeppelin and Turpitude; Southern France, Operation Vendetta; Norway, Operation Grafham; Operation Barclay, 1943 deception supporting the Sicily invasion, including elaborate cover stories and false intelligence suggesting attacks elsewhere in the Mediterranean. The Allies developed deception into a systematic practice, establishing dedicated organizations, methodologies, and career specializations. This systematization distinguished Allied deception from more ad hoc enemy efforts. 12.3 German deception capabilities. While less sophisticated than Allied efforts, Germans also employed military deception. Operation Wacht am Rhein. 1944, the deception plan supporting the Ardennes Offensive, Battle of the Bulge, successfully concealed German force concentrations and achieved tactical surprise. However, this operational-level deception lasted only briefly and lacked the strategic depth of Allied operations. Dummy installations. Germans deployed dummy airfields, factories, and military installations to attract Allied bombing, with some success in diverting attacks from genuine targets. Naval deceptions. The German Navy used dummy radio traffic and decoy operations to mislead Allied intelligence about major warship movements. However, German deception efforts faced fundamental disadvantages. Fragmented intelligence organizations reduced coordination. Lack of human intelligence penetration in Allied countries limited deception channels. Allied ultra-intelligence compromised German operational security. Hitler's personal management style limited flexibility in deception planning. 12.4 Post-war evolution of deception doctrine. Operation Fortitude's success influenced post-war military doctrine. During the Cold War, both NATO and Warsaw Pact forces developed sophisticated deception capabilities. Soviet military doctrine particularly emphasized maskirovka, operational masking and deception, as a central element of military art. Modern military forces continue to employ deception, though technologies have changed. Digital deception, targeting computer networks and sensors. Electronic warfare, creating false radar and communication signatures. Information operations, shaping adversary perceptions through media. Cyber operations, manipulating data and communications. The fundamental principles established by Fortitude, integrating multiple deception disciplines, understanding adversary intelligence capabilities, using closed-loop assessment systems, remain central to contemporary military deception planning. 13. Key personalities. 13.1 The planners. Lieutenant Colonel John Bevan. Head of the London Controlling Section, Bevan coordinated Allied strategic deception planning. A banker in civilian life, Bevan possessed the organizational skills and creative thinking essential for managing complex multinational deception operations. Colonel David Strangeways, commander of our force, 21st Army Group's Tactical Deception Unit. Strangeways pioneered many tactical deception techniques and trained the specialists who executed deception operations in the field. Colonel William Harris, chief of the SHEF Joint Security Control Deception Operations Section. Harris coordinated American participation in deception planning and managed the interface between British and American deception organizations. 13.2 The intelligence officers. Sir John Masterman, chairman of the 20 Committee, XX Committee, that supervised the Double Cross system. Masterman's post-war book, The Double Cross System, published 1972, first revealed the extent of British control over German agents. Tomas Harris, MI5 officer who handled Agent Garbo, Juan Pujol Garcia. Harris's fluency in Spanish and understanding of Spanish culture were essential in crafting Garbo's elaborate deception operations. Squadron leader Dennis Wheatley, RAF intelligence officer who contributed to deception planning. Wheatley was a successful novelist in civilian life, bringing creative thinking to military planning. 13.3 The agents. Juan Pujol Garcia, Garbo/Arabelle, the most successful double agent of the war, Garcia's fabricated intelligence network convinced German intelligence of Fusag's reality and Fortitude's deception narrative. Roman Czerniawski, Brutus Polish Air Force officer who became a valuable double agent after being captured by Germans and then turned by the British. His reports corroborated Garbo's intelligence. Duško Popov, tricycle Serbian double agent whose pre-war intelligence warned of Japanese interest in Pearl Harbor, though the warning was not fully appreciated. During Fortitude, Popov's reports supported the Pas-de-Calais deception. 13 point for the commanders. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, Eisenhower approved and supported deception operations while maintaining overall responsibility for the invasion's success. General George S. Patton willingly participated in his role as Fusag commander, understanding that his reputation made him ideal for the deception. Patton later led the Third Army in the breakout from Normandy. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, commander of 21st Army Group, Montgomery integrated tactical deception with operational planning throughout the campaign. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, chief of the Abwehr until 1944, Canaris oversaw German intelligence operations. Historians have debated the extent of Canaris's anti-Hitler sympathies and whether they affected his intelligence work. 14. The aftermath, recognition and legacy. 14.1 Immediate post-war period. As World War II ended in May 1945, the participants in Operation Fortitude dispersed. Most returned to civilian life without public recognition for their contributions, bound by classification restrictions that would last decades. Juan Puyol Garcia faced particular challenges. Having been awarded both the Iron Cross by Germany, without his ever meeting German officers face-to-face, and a member of the Order of the British Empire (MBE) by Britain, possibly the only person ever decorated by both sides in a conflict, Garcia feared retribution from German intelligence veterans. British intelligence helped him fake his death from malaria in Angola in 1949. He lived anonymously in Venezuela until historian Nigel West located him in 1984. Ghost Army veterans returned home, unable to discuss their service. When asked what they had done in the war, they could only provide vague responses about serving in headquarters units. This created psychological burdens, particularly for soldiers who had genuinely contributed to saving lives but could not share their experiences. 14.2 The declassification process. The gradual declassification of Operation Fortitude occurred over decades. 1972. Publication of Sir John Masterman's The Double Cross System first revealed the extent of British control over German agents and the Double Cross System's role in deception operations. 1974. Ultra-secret released, revealing Allied ability to read German encrypted communications. This disclosure transformed historical understanding of Allied intelligence advantages. 1996. Ghost Army operations finally declassified, allowing veterans to discuss their service after 50 years of silence. 2000s. Continued release of operational documents providing detailed information about deception planning, execution, and assessment. Each disclosure prompted historical reassessment. Scholars who had analyzed D-Day without knowledge of Fortitude had to reconsider their conclusions about why the invasion succeeded and why German forces were positioned and responded as they did. 14.3 Recognition and awards. Late recognition came to Operation Fortitude participants. 1. Pujol Garcia. After being rediscovered in 1984, Garcia received recognition from both Spanish and British governments. Prince Charles, later King Charles III, personally thanked him for his service. Ghost Army veterans awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 2022, 77 years after the war ended. By then, fewer than 10 Ghost Army veterans remain alive. Various double agents received posthumous recognition in books, documentaries, and museums dedicated to intelligence history. The delayed recognition highlights an ongoing tension in intelligence work. The most successful operations are often those that remain secret, denying participants the recognition they deserve while alive. 14.4 Cultural Impact. Operation Fortitude has entered popular culture through various media. Books. Multiple historical accounts, including Fortitude by Joshua Levine, Double Cross by Ben McIntyre, and The Deceivers by Thaddeus Holt. Films. The Ghost Army documentary, 2013, various documentaries about D-Day deception. Museums. The Imperial War Museum, the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, and Bletchley Park feature exhibits on deception operations. Academic study. Military colleges worldwide teach Operation Fortitude as a case study in successful strategic deception. The operation's legacy extends beyond military circles into business strategy, where deception principles inform competitive intelligence and strategic planning. 15. Analysis and conclusions. 15.1 Success factors. Operation Fortitude succeeded due to convergence of multiple favorable factors. Strategic surprise. Germans expected an invasion, but uncertainty about location and timing created opportunities for deception. Intelligence superiority. The combination of double-cross agents and ultra-decryption gave allies unprecedented insight into German thinking and ability to craft effective deception. Integration. Fortitude successfully integrated visual, sonic, radio, and human intelligence deception into a coherent narrative that reinforced itself across multiple channels. German vulnerabilities. Organizational fragmentation. Hitler's personal involvement in military decisions and prior German intelligence failures created systemic vulnerabilities that deception exploited. Resource commitment. Allied leadership allocated substantial resources, personnel, equipment, and high-level attention to deception operations. Security discipline. Maintaining operational security across thousands of personnel involved in planning and execution prevented leaks that would have compromised the operation. Patience. Planners maintained the deception for months, allowing it to become established in German thinking before D-Day rather than attempting last-minute deception. 15.2 Limitations and risks. Despite its success, Operation Fortitude involved significant risks and limitations. Dependence on German incompetence. The operation relied on German intelligence failures continuing. If Germans had discovered double-cross penetration, the entire deception would have collapsed. Resource diversion. Assets committed to deception, including patent services for months, were unavailable for other purposes. Complexity risks. The elaborate nature of the deception created multiple potential failure points. Any single exposure could have compromised the entire operation. Limited duration. Deception could only delay German response, not prevent it entirely. If D-Day invasion had been delayed significantly, the deception might have lost effectiveness. Weather dependence. The operation assumed certain patterns of German aerial reconnaissance. Extended periods of weather preventing German flights could have raised suspicions about gaps in their intelligence. 15.3 Strategic significance. From a strategic perspective, Operation Fortitude represents more than tactical cleverness. It exemplifies several crucial principles. Force multiplication. Relatively modest investments in deception achieved effects equivalent to deploying additional divisions. This force multiplication offered strategic advantage disproportionate to resource costs. Strategic patience. Rather than seeking immediate tactical advantages, planners developed a deception that shaped strategic conditions over months, creating decisive advantage at the critical moment. Integration of capabilities. Fortitude demonstrated the value of integrating diverse capabilities, intelligence, operations, technology, psychology, into unified strategic effect. Information warfare. The operation showcased information manipulation as a strategic weapon, anticipating contemporary concepts of information warfare and strategic influence operations. 15.4 Contemporary relevance. Operation Fortitude remains relevant to contemporary military thinking despite technological changes. Deception principles. Core principles. Understanding adversary perceptions, using multiple mutually reinforcing channels, maintaining consistency, exploiting cognitive biases, remain applicable. Information environment. Modern conflicts occur in complex information environments where perception and reality intertwine. Fortitude's lessons about shaping adversary understanding remain pertinent. Technological adaptation. While specific technologies have changed, from inflatable tanks to cyber deception, the fundamental challenge of convincingly misrepresenting capabilities and intentions persists. Integration requirements. Modern military operations require integration of diverse capabilities, just as Fortitude integrated visual, sonic, radio, and human intelligence deception. Risk management. The operation illustrates both the potential gains from accepting deception risks and the careful planning required to manage those risks. 15.5 Historical assessment. In historical perspective, Operation Fortitude ranks among World War II's most consequential operations. While D-Day's success depended primarily on courage and sacrifice of combat troops, strategic deception created conditions enabling that success with reduced casualties. The operation demonstrated that intellectual creativity could achieve effects beyond those available through material resources alone, a lesson particularly relevant for smaller powers or forces facing numerically superior adversaries. Fortitude also revealed the decisive importance of intelligence in modern warfare. The asymmetry between Allied intelligence advantages, ultra, double-cross, and German intelligence vulnerabilities created opportunities that clever operational planning exploited. This intelligence dimension distinguished World War II from previous conflicts and foreshadowed intelligence's central role in subsequent military competitions. 16. Conclusion. Operation Fortitude stands as a testament to human creativity in warfare. The elaborate deception that kept a phantom army commanded by General Patton threatening Pas-de-Calais, while real forces invaded Normandy, represents one of history's most successful strategic deceptions. The operation's success derived from meticulous planning, technological innovation, exploitation of enemy vulnerabilities, and integration of diverse deception disciplines into a coherent narrative. From inflatable tanks that fooled aerial reconnaissance to radio networks simulating phantom armies, from double agents feeding fabricated intelligence to codebreakers reading enemy assessments, Operation Fortitude wove multiple threads into a deception tapestry that convinced German high command of a reality that never existed. The human dimension of this story deserved particular recognition. 1. Pujol Garcia risked everything to deceive Nazi intelligence, operating a fictitious spy network that ultimately helped save thousands of lives. Ghost Army soldiers created battlefield illusions that protected their fellow troops. Radio operators maintained phantom communications networks. Planners coordinated thousands of details into a coherent whole. The strategic consequences proved enormous. By keeping the German 15th Army, 250,000 troops, out of the Normandy battle for 7 critical weeks, Operation Fortitude gave Allied forces time to establish secure beachheads, land reinforcements and supplies, and begin the liberation of Western Europe. General Eisenhower's assessment that this German army might possibly have defeated us if committed in June or July underscores the deception's decisive impact. Operation Fortitude's legacy extends beyond World War II. It established principles and methodologies that inform military deception to this day. The operation demonstrated that understanding adversary psychology, exploiting intelligence advantages, and integrating diverse capabilities could achieve strategic effects beyond those available through conventional military force alone. As Winston Churchill observed, in wartime, truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies. Operation Fortitude embodied this principle, creating a bodyguard so convincing that it helped preserve thousands of lives and contributed decisively to Allied victory in World War II. The story of the fake army that saved D-Day reminds us that warfare involves not just physical combat, but contests of perception, intelligence, and will. The soldiers who built inflatable tanks, the agents who fabricated intelligence reports, the planners who orchestrated elaborate deceptions. These contributors deserve recognition alongside those who stormed the beaches. Their creative deception helped ensure that D-Day succeeded, Western Europe was liberated, and Nazi tyranny was defeated. References and further reading. Primary sources: National Archives, London, CAB 154, Deception Planning Files. National Archives, Washington, D.C., RG 319, Army Intelligence Records. Bletchley Park Archives, Enigma Decrypts and Intelligence Summaries. Secondary sources: Holt, Thaddeus. The Deceivers, Allied Military Deception in the Second World War. New York, Scribner, 2004. Howard, Michael. Strategic Deception in the Second World War. New York, W. W. Norton, 1995. Levine, Joshua. Operation Fortitude: The True Story of the Key Spy Operation of World War II that Saved D-Day. London, Collins, 2011. Motsintre, Ben. Double Cross: The True Story of the D-Day Spies. New York, Crown, 2012. Masterman, J.C. The Double Cross System in the War of 1939 to 1945. New Haven, Yale University Press, 1972. Specialized Studies. Gerard, Philip. Secret Soldiers: The Story of World War II's Heroic Army of Deception. New York, Dutton, 2002. Pugil, one with Nigel West. Operation Garbo. London, Bite Back Publishing, 2011. Winterbotham, F.W. The Ultra Secret. New York, Harper & Row, 1974.